Hey all, thanks for joining us for another FineScale Modeler Weekly.
Welcome! We've got a great show for you, starting as we often do with some new kits.
Now I know some of you are looking at the two kits we have on this table and going, oh yay, another tiger.
But yes, we do have a pair of 1/35th scale Tiger 1s from Takom.
Starting with this Ausf late production.
This kit features molded Zimmerit and the option to build it as a command tank.
The former shows up on the lower lip at the rear of the hull. That piece also shows suspension details, weld seams, hatches, and the scalloped reinforcing at the sponson hull joint. The anti-magnetic paste texture is on the lower nose, hull sides and glasses, rear plate, and the panel in front of the driver.
The road wheel arms are keyed. Idlers and drive sprockets and road wheels all have good, crisp bolt and rim details. The Lincoln length tracks have separate guide horns.
This kit doesn't have a full interior, but there are fans, radiators, ducts, and fuel tanks to fill the voids beneath the open grills that fit into the upper hull.
The turret has Zimmerit molded on, matched on the optional mantlets and spent casing hatch. To fill the turret visible through the hatches on the optional turret tops, the breech, recoil mechanism, controls, and sight for the main gun, as well as the coaxial machine gun are supplied, along with seats for the commander and loader. Optional two-part plastic or one-piece metal barrels are provided for the main gun, which also features optional muzzle brakes.
Spare track links and the bustle stowage bin complete the basic build, but the kit supplies helmets, an oil drum, jerry cans, pails, ammo crates, logs, fabric rolls, and tarp-covered road wheels as stowage.
Clear plastic supplies periscopes and vision blocks, and the photo-etched brass fret as screens for the engine deck, handles for the pails, and the star antenna for the command tank.
Decals give markings for 4 tanks. A command Tiger from the SS Heavy Panzer Battalion 102 in northern France in 1944, an Eastern Front tank with the 505th Heavy Panzer Battalion, another Tiger on the Eastern Front from the 506th, and a 503rd Battalion tank in France in June 1944.
The other kit is the mid-production Ausf. It also features Zimmerit and shares many parts with the late production kit.
New here are the rubber-rimmed road wheels and the tracks with a different cleat pattern. The upper hull, turret top, and tools are new too. A nice addition to this kit is a figure of Otto, a Panzer commander known for his book, Tigers in the Mud.
The kit decals provide 2 options for a tank commanded by Carius with the turret number 217, one in dark yellow camo with green swatches, and the same camo covered by winter whitewash.
Yeah, so it's another Tiger, but this one's set apart by stowage and options. And this one allows you to live vicariously.
Eduard's 1/48th scale BF-110s have been around since 2007.
Yeah, and they're hard to beat for accuracy, if a little fiddly to build.
The subject has been reissued several times, with the latest being this weekend edition BF-110G4, a night fighter variant.
Typical of Eduard kits from the mid-2000s, surface detail on the fuselage and flight surfaces is recessed panel lines and a few rivets. The control surfaces are separate and posable, and there are flame-dampening exhausts for the engines.
There are optional noses, depending on the weapons that the aircraft being modeled had, and a decent cockpit, with an optional mount for the upward-firing Schräge music cannon. There are also a few options for the nose and tail-mounted Liechtenstein search radar antennas. There are parts to pose the canopy open or closed.
Decals supply markings for 4 night fighters. A BF-110 flown by Ace Oberleutnant Martin Becker with Nachtjagdgeschwader 6 in Belgium in May 1944. Another flown by Oberleutnant Heinz Wolfgang Schnofer, the most successful night fighter ace of all time, with Nachtjagdgeschwader 1 in Belgium in April 1944. A Nachtjagdgeschwader 3 bird in Norway in 1945. And an aircraft found by the Allies in Germany in 1945 that had been flown by Hauptmann Wilhelm Jonen, CO of Nachtjagdgeschwader 6.
This kit produces a nice-looking model of the BF-110.
It does, indeed. Speaking of Luftwaffe aircraft that are popular modeling subjects, here's an interesting collection of photos of the Focke-Wulf FW-190.
Part of Frontline's Air War Archive series, the 188-page softcover looks at the fighter from prototype and testing through service in all kinds of environments in camouflage patterns. There are chapters about engines, weapons, and the special Bomber Interceptor Sturmbach variant.
If your interest is more about World War I, get inspired by Volume 2 of Ronny Barr profiles German fighters of the Great War. Barr, known to many for the work he did with Wingnut Wings, is a master of the profile, and this 300-page hardcover is brimming with them, covering later war aircraft from the Albatros D5A to the Junkers D1.
There's no shortage of modeling ideas in these books.
In a previous episode, we looked at Dora Wings' initial 1/48 scale Thunderbolt, the P-47B.
You can see that as well as Andy Key's review at the links in the description.
The Ukrainian company has followed with the P-47C, the first variant of the big Republic fighter to see combat.
As you might expect, this kit shares many of the parts from the first release, including the wings, engine and landing gear, and cockpit. New here are the fuselage halves with cutouts in the belly for inserts and a ventral ferry tank.
In place of the kit's smooth plastic tires, this release includes cast resin tires with diamond tread and weighted bulging. The crowded decal sheet supplies stencils and instrument faces, along with markings for 4 olive drab and neutral gray aircraft. Jesse, Lil Abner, flown by Captain Eugene O'Neill of the 62nd Fighter Squadron. Arizona Pete, flown by Captain Kenneth Black Snake Pete Peterson with the 336th Fighter Squadron. Moi Tavarish, or My Comrade, flown by the legendary Colonel Hubert Zemke. And Lollapalooza, flown by Woodrow Suman of the 336th Fighter Squadron.
This is another neat release from Dora Wings.
It really is. Look for a review of the Tiger at FineScale.com in the near future.
As well as other neat stuff such as videos, how-to stories, show and reader galleries.
Get your butt over there now.
Are you interested in the best models of the year? If you are, that's great, and we have you covered because Contest Cars 2023 is available now. With photos and captions of more than 500 lowriders, gassers, dragsters, muscle cars, pickups, and more, you're going to see not only the winners, but just the best models that are out there. You can order your copy today from KalmbachHobbyStore.com or go to your local hobby store, bookstore, or newsstand and pick it up there. If they don't have it, ask them to order it or order it direct from us. Also coming from FineScale Modeler is our 100-page special issue paint award-winning figures. Inside you will find projects from well-known figure modelers like Joe Hudson, Brian Wildfong, Matt Mrazek, and many more. And it will be available in March. However, you can pre-order it now on KalmbachHobbyStore.com. And don't forget, you can subscribe to FineScale Modeler magazine, where you'll get 6 issues a year full of how-to stories from some of the best modelers around the world and access to subscriber-only content on FineScale.com. Go to this link to subscribe and you'll get a special introductory offer for our YouTube viewers. We're just going to get right into talking about the lowly tweezers today. Now I'm going to assume that most, if not all of you who are watching, have a pair of tweezers at your workbench, if not multiple tweezers at your workbench. If you do not have a pair of tweezers at your workbench currently, what you need to do is pause the video and head out and go to a store, local store, anywhere that's got a cosmetics aisle, and get yourself just a set of tweezers. Any tweezers will do.
Professor Kidwell.
Yes, Mr. Skinner.
Are you sure that they should pause the video before buying the tweezers, or should they watch your advice for the kind of tweezers that they should get?
Look, at this point, if they don't have tweezers at their workbench right now, any tweezers is going to be better than no tweezers at all. They can come back and watch the video and then order hobby-centric tweezers from their favorite place or go to the hobby store. But they need tweezers right now at their workbench. Does that answer your question?
Not really, but we'll go with it.
Oh, jeez. Look, you are just disruptive. Disruptive and disrespectful. All right. Back to the tweezers. What?
Never mind. Keep going, Professor.
Back to the tweezers. I have here an array of tweezers from my workbench. And let's just go through what these are and what I look for in a set of tweezers. So over here, I have a set of hemostatic forceps. Essentially, what they do is they have a little locking mechanism down here. They're hinged toward the tip. These particular ones are curved, and what you can do, and they've got little teeth on there, and what you can do is you can lock them, and then they'll just go ahead and hold whatever you want to hold with them. I use these typically to hold rigging so that I can just lock them, put them down, and it'll keep a rigging line tight. These are my go-to set of tweezers. They are the oldest tweezers that I own, next to these, and we'll talk about those in a minute. They're an old X-Acto set, and I really like them because they have a very sharp pointed end. Now, I do think that I need to replace these. I've had them for years and I want to replace them, and there is a reason why. While I really do enjoy how sharp they are at the end, and that's why I've kept them for decades, their action is very stiff. It takes a good amount of thumb strength to actually close them and then keep them closed. And I'm going to use these as an example. What really I look for and have looked for in other tweezers like these thumb-activated forceps, if you will, but these tweezers, is that really to activate them, it's almost just relax. If you just put your hand down right and you do that with your thumb, it shouldn't take much more than that to close your tweezers. And that's going to save you on hand fatigue. I just haven't gone and replaced these because they've got sentimental value to me, and I really like how sharp they are. But I should take my own advice and replace them, because the last thing you want is tweezers that cause you a lot of hand fatigue, especially if you're doing a bunch of work at your model and you're holding something for a long amount of time. And you got to place it somewhere very delicate. And if you're doing that, your hand starts to get tired and, well, suddenly you're shaking. You're less precise with holding the part than you would be otherwise if your hand wasn't tired. These tweezers here I use for placing decals. I really like how flat they are, how they come together here at the end, and as I said, they squeeze together nicely, so if I have to hold decal paper in place for a long amount of time, my hand is not getting tired by doing that. I like how the jaws come together on this set. You can find tweezers that, again, are specific for decals. They have sort of little paddles at the end. I think these sort of craft tweezers do a similar job just fine. These ones are from Tamiya, and I find them to be very good for placing decals. Now, what I will tell you, however, recently I built a 1/32 scale TIE fighter, the kit from AMT. And I don't know if it was the day or the couple of days, there was a lot of, I guess, static electricity in the workshop. And I was using these tweezers and I was placing those decals. And the decals in that kit are, shall we say, a bit stiff. And I've never seen this actually happen before. I've heard about it, but I was holding the decal with this set of tweezers, and I actually watched that decal stand straight up. Just stood straight up on the paper, and then when I was trying to place it, it leapt from the decal paper onto the model. And I was like, okay. Well, I had heard about anti-static tweezers, and up until that point, I was like, psh, no, who cares? I can get by with whatever. That experience made me a believer. So, anti-static tweezers are available. You can get them online for a number of different manufacturers. And basically what it is a set of tweezers that end in anti-static composite here, where it will not cause your decal to stand up and then leap away from your tweezers while you're trying to place them. So I have a set now in my tools, and they probably aren't a bad idea, especially if you find that there's a lot of static at your workbench. Next up, we have basically on this side my set of locking and cross-locking self-closing tweezers. We don't have to go into super detail about, each of these and what they can be used for. Needless to say, locking tweezers like these, they got a little latch here where you hear that? It locks. So it keeps the jaws closed, and whatever you're holding in there, you can manipulate it. I use these, as you can probably tell, for painting purposes. These are my oldest set of cross-locking self-closing tweezers. Really nice point on the top or at the front. And then a range of them over here going to the left. These are straight. I really like these for a similar reason that I like these forceps. They are very, they've got a lot of tension on the squeeze. And with these kind of tweezers, I find that I look for more tension on the squeeze rather than what I would do with tweezers like these, where you don't want that hand fatigue. Because whatever you're holding up here, you really want to make sure that those jaws lock onto it, especially if you're holding something fine. Which brings me to another point about these, and that is, for instance, these have these teeth in here. You want to make sure that those teeth on those tweezers interlock, and when they close down as far back as possible. If the teeth are not interlocking and they are instead of doing this, they're doing this, they're not going to hold on to those finer pieces, especially if you're doing, let's say, really fine 1/48 scale or 1/72 scale airplane rigging. At that scale, what you'll find is that rigging will actually slip through those jaws. So you want to make sure that those jaws, those teeth, interlock as well as possible to make sure that they hang on. Again, these are bent, these are straight. It's just about being able to get into those tight places the best. And then finally over here, I have some cross-locking, self-closing, soldering tweezers that are really useful for soldering wire if you're going to light a model, or even for photo etch metal. So why am I going on about tweezers? Well, why do I go on about any of the tools that we use? It's because tools are supposed to make your life easier. And you really should have at least a set of tweezers like this to help you manipulate small parts at your workbench. It's not a bad idea to have a set of tweezers that's dedicated, or a couple of sets of tweezers, that are dedicated to decals. That's not a bad idea either. Now, you can go online and you can find tweezers that are all sorts of special, like tweezers that have ends that are specifically designed to manipulate tubes or pipes. You have tweezers that are hollowed out laterally, that are cylindrical. You have these interesting little gripper tweezers that come out with fingers that you can spread out and tighten to grab things. So you can find tweezers for just about anything. Do you need to have as many as I have? Can you have more? Sure. It all depends on what you're doing at your workbench and what kind of modeling you're doing. If you don't have a selection of tweezers at your workbench, you can go online or to your local hobby store, craft store, and you can buy a set of tweezers of 4 or maybe 8 or 12 that gives you a selection right away, right out of the gate, and you won't necessarily have to think about them anymore. But as you do more modeling, you might find that you need a tweezer for these specific cases. In that case, just go out, and I advocate getting what it is that's going to make your life easier.
FineScale Modeler Weekly is brought to you by Hobby Zone USA, your source for hobby storage solutions, hard-to-find hobby tools, and aftermarket modeling needs.
So this is our second season, and so far this season we have yet to do questions and comments and address those. So we thought we'd do that. So Tim, what's first up?
Questions and comments. Okay, all right. So why don't we take this one from Andy Lee's 2940. Why oh why would you use the highly expensive overpriced glues from mainstream suppliers to make sprue goo instead of cellulose thinners? And now this is a comment that has come up on our Scale Model Basics making and using sprue goo. Well, Andy, if you watch the video, I talk about how I did use cellulose thinners, which is essentially lacquer thinner. And the lacquer thinner did not work nearly as well as what the Tamiya airbrush cleaner, aka Tamiya Extra Thin Cement, did. And that's why I used it, because it kept that sprue gooier, longer, and nicer. It just made a really nice creamy mix. Now, I can go on Google here and Google cellulose thinners, and lo and behold, what you're going to get is Mr. Color Thinner, Mr. Color Leveling Thinner, this $40 can of Frugo cellulose thinner, the lacquer thinner that I used, which cost me 11 bucks, and then a bunch of others. Here's the thing. If lacquer thinner works for you, then fine. Use it and use what works for you. For me, that Tamiya Extra Thin Cement works way better than any of the lacquer thinners that I tried.
The lacquer thinners just seem to evaporate too quick.
They evaporated too quick. They took forever to actually break down the sprue. And again, different sprue is going to react differently with different solvents, but I just found that the Tamiya airbrush cleaner, aka Extra Thin Cement, worked the best. Let's move on.
Shall we?
Question 2 comes to us from Ken Slaforum, I think. So what is the most current replacement for this product that doesn't cost $70+? And he's talking about Pledge Floor Gloss.
Formerly known as Future, which we've used for years in modeling. Well, the good news is we ran some tests. Floor Gloss is no longer available. We know they're no longer producing it. SC Johnson's ceased production. But we ran some tests, and the thing we liked the best as a replacement for it, both for dipping clear parts and for airbrushing for clear finishes, right?
Yep.
Was Holloway House Quick Shine Multi-Surface Floor Finish.
And we did a video, or a couple of videos, where we used that, and you can find those in the links below.
Hope that helps.
All right, so a comment that, or a question that we got on our Scale Model Basics about decaling is, do you apply clear coat before or after decals, or both?
My choice is always both. I want to apply the clear gloss beforehand so that the decals settle better. They always adhere better to a nice smooth finish. And then I like to seal those decals with another dose of clear, either gloss or flat, usually gloss because I'm going to put washes over it, because that protects those decals from the weathering that is to come. And some of those solvents can be kind of harsh.
And I agree. I'll even go as far as to, in certain cases, brush paint the gloss into areas where maybe I'm having difficulty because of silvering or something along those lines. I'll actually go in and, I might airbrush it on, or I might spray it on with the spray can, but I'll also brush paint it in there too.
And one of the things I would say is that if you've got like decals on the model, and it's not a lot of decals, say it's a piece of armor or something, and you just need to seal those, you might just airbrush it over or brush paint it over that particular area, not the whole thing again, if you've already got the gloss over the rest of it.
And just to go back to the previous question about Quick Shine or Pledge Floor Gloss, if you're doing those sort of spot decalings, you don't have to necessarily go ahead and gloss your entire tank.
Right.
You can just go ahead and put that gloss in that particular area where you're going to put the decal, place your decal, and I know you've done it before where you would actually float the decal into the Pledge Floor Gloss.
Yeah.
But then let that dry, and then you can seal right over that.
Yeah.
And you'll be good to go.
Exactly. It just protects the decal. They can be a little fragile, so. And nothing ruins a model like ruining your decals.
All right. So we got quite a few comments about the Crydrufi, I'm sure I'm still getting that name wrong. The Crydrufi art box, modular art box. But Warship Models Underway came in, and he says, they say, I am absolutely a tool junkie collector, but I've yet to find a system that works better for brushes than a cup of your choice to hold them and $3 store shot glasses filled with the appropriate thinner or solvent in varying degrees of cleanliness.
One, we salute you for that. Warship Models Underway.
Certainly
But
do.
I would caution you that if you are one to partake of a drink or two at the workbench, make sure you grab the right shot glass. Now, that said, I've had some alcohol. That
My mother's bragged about drinking turpentine, so I don't.
I mean, I've had some
She's
cheap
80
alcohol
years
that
old now.
tasted like could have been paint thinner, had about the same color. Yeah.
Anyway, no, as always, and we talked about this earlier with the tweezers, it's about making your life easier. Use what works for you.
Right.
Regardless of what we may say.
Yes, and obviously everything is a personal choice.
And finally, we'll end this show with a comment from a regular commenter, Mike Sackmary. And he says, quote, do you like tiny German armor? End quote. That quote should have been the basis for a Monty Python skit.
We could not agree more.
No one expects tiny German armor.
Ha ha! Clank, 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 clank.
Anyway, thank you all for joining us.
We'll see you next time for
Bye.
something completely different.
Oh, well done. See you later.
Bye. I think we did that. Wow.
I mean, we practiced it quite a few times.
It is all downhill from here. But this one's set apart. I'm trying to do my falsetto.
For your accuracy. You added your, you keep adding your in front of it. Too many vowels.
We have irritable vowel syndrome.
I feel like that deserves applause.
We are going to get raked over the coals for all of my pronunciations in that.
So why am I banging on about banging? Because tools at your work. Let's try that again, Diane. Oh, dude, no. Now you gotta turn it off.